So we are going to go back in time on a time machine. Are you ready?
Socially speaking, some famous films were Rebecca, Casablanca, Mr. Minifer, The Lost Weekend, Since You Went Away, How Sweet Was My Sally, and The Best Years of Our Life, at the end, The Treasure of the Pyramid.
The music. The most popular music style was swing and ballet during all the decade.
Despite the war, there were great books which people could distract themselves with. Some important books of this decade were The Little Prince by Anton Saint-Exupéry in 1940, Note 6 by Jean-Paul Sartre in 1944, and the Diary of Anne Frank by Anne Frank in 1947. This book was the first edition on this decade that they called Character Ruiz. It means the diary, but in another language. The language is Dutch. The Death of the Saints Maid by Arthur Miller in 1948. It was common to use floral prints and geometric shapes like this.
Fashion seems to even go to war because they wore dark greens and khakis. Also important thing here is that the trouser and breeches slowly replaced the dressers and heels due to the shortages in stockings and gasoline. Why? Because people had to walk more to get gasoline. It was the most famous posters in this decade, and it represents the women who had to work in munition factories because men went to work.
Some important leaders in this decade were Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, and Joseph Stalin. This forum was in the Yalta conference. In this forum, they USSR and the Soviet Union. The purpose of the meeting was discussing Europe's post-war reorganization, and Mao Zedong declared founding the modern People's Republic in China. Also, Gandhi was a political and spiritual leader. He adopted the principle of non-violence. He used to read he used to lead campaigns for alleviate poverty and eliminate injustice. He reached his big goal when India got its independence from Great Britain.
Okay. Some bands were the Andrews Sisters, the Mills Brothers, the Robins, and the Pied Pippers.
Famous musicians were Harry James, Benny Carter, Frank Sinatra, and Benny Goodman. In 1940, the Olympic Games were cancelled during the World War II. Those athletes, like many other professionals, sacrificed their careers for the benefits of the society. Okay. Some political and economical events were the World War II was from 1939 to 1945. In this war, the majority of the nation and the world's powers participated, forming two opposing military alliances. The first one were the Germany, Italy, and Japan. And the second one formed by the Soviet Union and the US, China, and France. In 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union, but then they signed a pact against the aggression between them. And then in 1941, the Japanese aviation attacked Pearl Harbor, where was the U.S. Navy. And then, when the World War II began, a lot of people in the U.S. started to found a new life and new opportunities for all. After the Japanese attack, the U.S. started to work in munition factories, and a lot of women and the minorities who had been in unemployment in the 30s also found work in this day.
The years from 1940s to 1945 were a radical change for the electrical engineers. Their field was transformed from energy and communications to the most powerful technologies. After 4 years, this war reached the end. The Soviet Union and US became world powers. But after that, the Cold War started by disagreements between the Soviet Union and the US about distribution of Germany and defending their ideologies. But another important thing here is that was to avoid a nuclear battle. Okay, Adolf Hitler, in 1945, Adolf Hitler and his wife committed suicide. In these years, the Organization of United Nations was created with the purpose of avoid more wars.
The division of Korea in two parts, North and South Korea, also took place. Originally, Korea belonged to Japan, but when the US and the Soviet Union won the World War II, they both divided and established their armies there. So even though they wanted to join Korea again through elections, but finally the Soviet Union didn't accept the system of election from the US, and for this reason, the start of the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union, North and South Korea were declared independent states. Furthermore, in Costa Rica, the Universidad de Costa Rica, el Código del Trabajador, garantías sociales, la Caja Costarricense de Seguro Social, and others were created in benefit of our population in this period. Also, Costa Rica had a military relation with the US during the World War II. So Costa Rica took away houses, money, and properties from German, Japanese, and Italian people who were living here, and then Costa Rica sent them to the US as a prisoner. Obviously, it caused discomfort between Costa Ricans people who had economical relations with them. Additionally, this period was the scenario of frequent electoral frauds, provoking a battle in 1998. And 1 year later, the army was abolished by José María Figueres Perez.
People in Costa Rica were illiterate because they didn't wear shoes because they were very poor. Another important thing was that in 1949, the vote was approved for women here in Costa Rica.
Certainly, nobody should forget this decade because it has been for economical, social, and political learning for a lot of countries. For this reason, or for this, history makes sense.
But we have a surprise.
Whoa. What did you